Sam Cosby, finger, DNP. Jahan Dotson, hamstring, DNP. Milo Eifler, hamstring, DNP. Curtis Samuel, illness, DNP. Charles Leno, shoulder, limited. David Mayo, hamstring, limited. William Jackson, back, full. Daniel Wise, ankle, full. Robinson and Larson will not be on the injury report until they're activated to the 53.
Ron, how did Brian look? How good was it to have him back out there?
It was good to have him out there, and he looks solid. I mean, he's got a little bit of ways to go. You know, conditioning will be a question, that's for sure. But just watching him, I mean, his retention, his recall looked pretty good. And, you know, we did some of the things that, you know, he does well. He was out there doing them. So it looked good. It was all promising.
What are you going to look for to see, like, if you could play this weekend? And does the fact that you play another game on Thursday factor into anything with this week?
Yes, it will. The biggest thing is we'll have to take a look at how he handled today, tomorrow morning. You know, come in, see where he is, see how he feels. You know, that's always a good indicator when a guy really gets his first real workout, is how he's reacting the next day. And then as we get into it, and if he, you know, practices again like he did today, then we'll see if there's any drop-off. You know, we have the GPS tracking that will be able to give us his speeds just to see where they are. And that's something that we'll most certainly take a look at, because I know the trainers and the strength conditioning staff will be looking at those.
Ron, just to tie off something from last week, I don't think we ever asked you with Wes Schweitzer putting him on IR.
Yeah, he's in the concussion protocol, and it's one of those that we have to be very, very careful with. You know, there is a little bit of concern just because of you know, how he's kind of reacted. So we'll go from there.
And then you spoke to JP this week, and he asked something about could there be bigger changes looming if you guys don't get things going here? And you said could be, and it was potentially close. People here think that they think quarterback, coaching staff. What in your mind does that mean?
In my mind, it's we'll see. I mean, we've got time, and so you know, as each game progresses, we'll evaluate and we'll go from there.
Okay, and then lastly for me, we saw Dan Snyder at the game this week. When's the last time you've talked to him, and what was sort of the nature of that conversation?
Well, I saw him at the game. I got a chance to say hello to him. We talked on the we talked at the 50-yard line. I greeted him, Mrs. Snyder, Jason, and Mr. Jones, and just said hello and had an opportunity to say hi. And it was good to see him out here.
Ron, how are you?
Good.
I think it was last week you even mentioned about Brian, the physical and mental recovery. I'm just wondering, just in your conversations with him since the shooting, just how has he been mentally, spiritually, and if you talk to him specifically about, you know, that?
I think his mental frame of mind is really good. I do. I think he, you know, one thing we talked about is, you know, he talked about how fortunate he was, and he understands that he gets that, and I think it's kind of given him a little bit more insight as to, you know what, every moment is precious. And being back out here on the field today, you could see the joy in which he was running around. I mean, he really he wanted to do more. We had to slow him down a little bit, you know, because what the doctors had prescribed and trainers was go out, do a workout, do a couple of series on the side with the strength conditioning staff and trainers, and then when he finished up, then they would allow him to come over and work a little bit. He finished up in great shape, so he came over. They allowed us to put him in a couple of smattering of plays on each period. He took those plays, looked pretty good at it, and as I said, because he did so much work, we'll see how he is tomorrow. But I think right now, I think he's in a good place, and for us as a football team, it's good to see him back out there.
Coach, Brian was doing, I believe, the hold on to the football fumble drills, and you kind of, I mean, your eyes were riveted on him. Like, what was going through your mind when you were looking at him at that moment?
Well, I was just trying to see if there's, you know, any difference or if he's favoring anything or if he's concerned about something. I mean, that's all part of it. Sometimes guys come back from injuries and you can see that there's a little hesitance. And, you know, if we have any hopes of him playing soon, you can't have that hesitance. And it's funny because he started kind of gradually. I didn't notice anything different, but it's just kind of a gradual buildup. And the more and more he did, the more and more confident I think he got in it. And then there were a couple of running plays today where there was a couple of cuts where he had to stick that leg in the ground and really come off of it, and he did. And that's one of the things that when we watched the tape today, us as coaches, and I know the training staff will be looking for anything that might be something that would be concerning. and we'll see how he goes through those reps that he got. I think in all total, I want to say of the reps we had, I think he probably got about 8, maybe 10, somewhere in there. He did pop in and take a couple of reps for the show team, which we had to tell him no, but he you got to keep an eye on him because he was having a lot of fun.
Ryan, you're obviously a competitor, and you're frustrated with this losing streak.
Mm-hmm.
You've talked to the players, today and been around the guys. What's the vibe with them with this losing streak, and do you lean on the senior leadership and the veterans and the captains to kind of help with the messaging?
Very much so. And I think it's one of those things that, the guys just have to understand. It's about keep coming to work every day, keep working to get better. There's a lot of good things that are out there. If we continue to work, continue to do the things that we're supposed to, and just continue to get better and grow as a football team.
A couple weeks ago, we asked you about how do you stop Jalen Hurts. You said discipline. Now you have a Derrick Henry, power running back for Tennessee. What's the key to kind of slow him down?
Same thing. I mean, you have to be where you're supposed to be. You got to make sure you're in your creases. You got to make sure that you're squared up in your creases. You don't want to be getting to there as he's already there, because then you'll end up in an arm tackle, and as you've seen, he goes right through arm tackles. You've got to make sure you're where you need to be. You're in a good football position, and you deliver a nice tackle, head up, everything, seeing what you're hitting, and you give yourself a chance to stop this guy.
One more on Brian. Did you address the team about his return at all, or?
No, there was no need to. I mean, we've seen him around. He's been out there. He's back there, on the field, showing them that, hey, I'm back. I'm working to get myself ready to play, and we'll see how it goes.
Yes. I mean, it seemed like you guys are struggling in the play action. I don't know if it's just a matter of, not selling or what it is. Is there anything you can put your finger on in terms of getting that particular element of the game rolling?
Well, I think a big part of it is, again, as we have more and more success running the football, your play action becomes even more and more sellable. I think with an addition to what we want to do, in addition in terms of player, it might have an impact. So we'll see how that goes as we play these next couple of games.
Following up on Ben's question about the changes, in the offseason, do you map out anything of, if the season goes, of course, we can make these changes? Do you already have an idea in your mind of?
Well, if you had an idea in your mind at that point, then you're not as confident in your players. I don't go into it any preconceived notion. One thing that we may go into it, and we may say to ourselves, is if this young guy comes along, then we most certainly would consider playing him more. That's probably the one thing you would look at. But to think that I'm going to go in with a preconceived notion as to who we're going to change out, that's concerning to me. I mean, I go into this all the time thinking, hey, we got a good chance, good opportunity, and I believe that. And that's just kind of the way I approach it.
And then with Brian, what can he, we've already asked you what he can add, but just what do you think this means for Antonio, and how do you think they can kind of complement each other if they can?
Well, I think that's really the big thing about it, is to complement each other. We know Brian's strengths in terms of his running style and the type of game he brings. We know what Antonio's strengths are, and I think also not just his running, but, and you guys have seen it now, is him in space catching the ball. A guy that size being with that kind of receiving ability, route running ability, presents a challenge for a linebacker matchup, maybe even a safety matchup. And so there is an opportunity to have some complements to it, as far as, when one guy's in and then the other guy rotates in, then you throw in a J.D. McKissick into that mix, and you've got a good group of backs that rotate through, and you try to find, the matchups that you can exploit.
Scott asked you about Derrick Henry, but what do you make of the Titans receiver group? Robert Woods, a veteran, kind of what's the challenge that group presents?
Well, I think first of all you got a savvy veteran in Woods. I think it's a stout group. They're good blockers. That's a big part of what they have to do, and we've got to be aware of that. The big thing that they do is they are a heavy play action team. They're a heavy screen team. Most of their dropbacks do come in third down or in empty sets. So we've got to make sure we're on that. They move their guys around a lot. So if we're looking to match up, we got to be very aware as to where everybody's lining up.
It was reported that Sam Cosby had hand surgery. Do you guys have a feel for timeline?
No feel for the timeline. He did have surgery. It was done the other day. It was successful, and we'll see after he gets a chance to see the doctors. It's really going to be about wound management as far as that's concerned. and then we'll go from there.
And on Monday you said in one of your answers, I got to be realistic with what we have and what we're going to do, and I don't think we got a chance to follow up. Just what did you mean specifically with that? I got to be realistic with what we have.
Well, what I basically mean is we're going to play who we have. You know, everybody, you know, we're to our third center right now, so we're going to play with our third center. We're going to have to play with other players at tackle, other players at guard. That's what I mean. I know who we have out there.
Sam, Nicky, last couple.
You guys brought in a couple linemen. Do you see them as being depth pieces, or do you envision them contributing?
They're depth pieces for right now, and you hope we don't get to where they have to contribute. Both guys are guys that, you know, we like enough to bring in and put on the practice squad, and it's because of the depth, you know, situation and circumstances. I mean, you hope we don't have to go that deep, but if we do, you know, hopefully these guys will get an opportunity to get trained up, and we'll see. But, you know, it's a little bit of a sign of the times.
And we talked a little bit about Carson's comfort in the offense on Monday. Where do you feel like that's at, and what are the small things you're looking for?
Well, I think he's still working through it. You know, we got to remember he was in the same style of offense, you know, for two different teams. And so now it's, you know, learning a little bit different philosophy, having a little bit different understanding as to, you know, why this type of play call, why this type of formation. And I think as he gets more and more comfortable, more and more in sync with what Scott's thinking, what the offensive coaches are thinking, I think you'll see, you know, his comfort level start to rise more and more.
I know last year you guys dealt with a ton of injuries on the line too, and there are obviously different variables in play here, but, you know, just generally, what do you think has been the difference up front?
Well, I think the biggest difference more than anything else is that these injuries didn't come about until later in the year. You know, by that time, this group had played together for a number of games before we lost our first guy for a while. And I think that's a big part of it, because now if you get an opportunity, and these guys that are in backup roles, key backup roles, they've been practicing, they're getting more and more comfortable with what we do, they're in shape, they're ready to play. And then if there's an injury week 7, you know, you feel comfortable having that guy rotate in and become part of what they're doing. And I think that's a big part of why, you know, this year, having it happen as early as it has happened has really kind of changed the scope of things, because a lot of these guys haven't been working together. They are not used to each other. There's a lot of little nuances that get developed over time. And this group as a whole hasn't had a lot of time together as opposed to last year's group.
And how concerned are you about Charles Leno's shoulder injury? Is that?
No, I'm not. I mean, I'm concerned, but I think, you know, the big thing is that we are just being overly careful right now, to be honest with you. Not that I'm not honest with you, but just so you know, we are being overly careful with him, just because we're trying to make sure, you know, we don't need him going out there taking, you know, 3-4 reps at a time against Montez, you know. So we roll him in, give him a couple of snaps, get him out right away. That type of thing is what we're trying to do. Things that the coaches think he needs to see, they'll rotate him in so he sees those particular plays, then we get him out. So, you know, and he's a veteran guy, so really with him it's just going to be about the conditioning, and he does stuff on the side, so he should be fine.
One quick one about the defense. Derrick Forrest and Benjamin St. Juste each have had a couple really good games. Have they shown enough to you at this point to make you feel confident that if they need to go in and start and stay as a starter, you guys could win with them?
Very much so. You know, these young guys are, you know, starting to get to where you would hope they would get in their second season. You know, and what's happening is you see their confidence building, which means, you know, us as coaches, our confidence is building in them. And that is one of those things that really just, you know, as time comes, you know, there's going to be a point where you're not going to be able to hold them back, just because they'll take a next step. The nice thing for Defoe, really more than anything else, is how he's assimilated to really a couple of different roles for us, not just playing safety, but playing the Buffalo position for us. And then we have another package he's worked in, and he's done that very well. And it's one of our hybrid groups that we bring in, where we bring in a 7th defensive back. And he's been the guy that's been in that mix, and he's done that very nicely. So there's a lot of positive growth that you're seeing from a young man like that, so you get excited about it.
All right, thanks.
All righty, cool.
All right, everyone, we'll have Brian next. I just want to make one announcement. Since it's still a pending investigation, he's not going to be able to answer any questions on the shooting itself or